homes over there. That's what's basically set aside for South River development.
The original zoning
Right.
was 320, yes, sir.
Okay, 320. So they could build 160 townhouses as well as single-family homes over there, under the current conditions.
Current conditions would be all single-family detached.
But let's just say that part of their proposed to go along with the current. Under that scenario, they could build 160 townhouses over there.
Potentially.
Yes, potentially. Is there any way to tie, again, we've said 200 or 350 homes a year is what they could build.
It's what they're requesting, yes, sir.
Yep. Is there some way of tying in, they can build no more than a maximum of 50% of, in a community in that given year? That would eliminate, I think, some of the problems that Mr. Seeley is talking about, and maybe Mr. Black has spoken about, is the fact of saying, hey, if they can build 400 homes in this community, can they go in and build 170 or 200 homes in that neighborhood of just townhomes? If you tie the phasing plan in with the number of homes, then I think it limits it.
Yes, sir. We can discuss that with the applicant.
Okay. The second thing has to do with the water usage. And I know that, and I trust that's not a big issue, but potentially it could be. We did, when the property was rezoned many years ago, there was specific high standards put in there as far as landscaping is concerned, as well as architectural standards. And one of the things that, it's my understanding that the architectural standards will move from Ladysmith Village over to South River Development, and it'll all be one architectural standards. And they're very high standards. I mean, we appointed a committee that looked and developed those standards for Ladysmith Village along with the developers. So, again, I've often said to people, you can ride in some of the neighborhoods we have, and you look down the side of a house and you see this wavy siding up. I doubt very seriously if you see that in Ladysmith Village, because it's thicker and it's a different type of standard in Ladysmith Village than what's required in the other neighborhoods that we have in this county. But the landscaping standards were extremely high. I know this past year, because I go in Ladysmith Village quite a lot, is the fact that they had to replace trees, they had to replace the turf on many of the common areas there, and that was not inexpensive. That was expensive for them to do that. But still, they had to maintain the standards because that's what we said they could do. But then on the other hand, in 2013, we said you cannot water the grass, you cannot water the trees because we've got you on a restriction. So in order to allow them to water their common areas and their trees with well water, if you will, non-potable water, to me makes sense since we have put in some pretty high standards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Underwood, did you have?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think we pretty much beaten this horse here. Pretty much understand.
Okay.
I think all the concerns regarding the building of what types of housing in South River, I think it's been pretty much debated. So,
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have a couple. Maybe Mr. Akers' situation would work. I guess my concern is that I guess I'd like to see the standard, if it's possible, in all the neighborhoods to be the same at a 26%, so that way you're not piling one neighborhood. I mean, and we can discuss that more. The other thing too, and I'm not sure if the builder would be, acceptable, that a minimum square footage, so that way we're not building, a 1,000-foot square foot townhomes. I mean, I'd like to, if we can have a discussion, I
Yes,
guess,
sir.
on that front. The other thing too, and going back to Durrett Road for a second, do we have, if Durrett Road has to be, go to 4-lane, which there's a possibility, they say in there that it's, do we have the right, what about the right-of-way? Who deals with that as far as extending it farther?
You mean beyond the limits of the current property?
Yes.
That's something that we would have to work with VDOT and or those property owners.
Oh. As in the county?
Or, yes. My based upon the type of project and the traffic generation, I don't believe that we are going to reach the threshold where a 4-lane divided highway is necessary. I think the traffic impact analysis will probably indicate, and this is just based on my experience with looking at other projects and TIAs, I don't think the design of the road system is going to create a continuous thoroughfare where you would see extremely high numbers in trip generation. Having said that, the short answer is any right-of-way acquisition off-site, it would have to be a secondary road project in our 6-year plan through VDOT unless another development came within that area, in which case we could negotiate those additional road improvements as part of that project.
Okay, I guess my question is, and I haven't had too much experience going up and down Durrett Road, but the times I have, it's not a very wide road to begin with.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So even if you don't go 4-lane, you go 2-lane, I can't even see if VDOT would, I would imagine that even if you stay 2-lane and we're going to pave it, I would imagine VDOT would want it to be widened under its current condition, correct? So would we have to still go right away? I mean, I guess that's the question. Even with under current condition, let's say it's
Current condition, you probably don't have 30 feet of right-of-way through there. Some of that's probably a prescriptive easement, which dictates to pave in place standard.
Mr. Fincham, a year ago, you did a look at Durrett Road for me from the proffers and when this was going to be done. And it was my understanding that Durrett Road had to be rebuilt and actually relocated further, and I don't know which direction it is, south, and then the entrance would have to be redone, and that it would move, and then those homes that are dead-ended, those would actually have cul-de-sacs in them, or some turnaround. So, and my understanding is that Newland was responsible for doing that at some point in time.
Yes, sir, and that's clarified now in these proffers. That's what that phasing plan for Durrett Road would do. And the current street that have not been completed within Ladysmith Village would ultimately connect to that reconstructed Durrett Road. Yes, sir.
So Durrett Road, so the entrance to Durrett Road onto Route 1, who's responsible for that? Is Newland?
That would be Newland under Phase 2 in terms of acquiring the property for the road improvement. There was an agreement in place several years back with the current property owner regarding the purchase of that property. So that would be, I believe it's a Phase 2 improvement that's specified in here. So the reconstruction and realignment is still addressed in the proffers.
And that, I guess I'm curious why we're talking about VDOT and traffic studies and...
Well, I think the question is whether it needs to be 2 lanes or 4 lanes. It's going to have to be reconstructed and relocated anyway to meet a new design standard. The question becomes, does it have to be a 2-lane or does it have to be a 4-lane based upon the traffic study?
But there's no right-of-ways to be gotten because it's already in Newland's footprint, correct? So there's no easements, no right-of-ways to be purchased?
No, they would still have to purchase the land in front of their property across Durrett Road from the animal hospital. There's a vacant parcel of land there. They do not currently own that. There have been discussions over the years with that property owner, with Ladysmith Land, about the purchase of that property to facilitate the Durrett Road improvement. So that would still have to be acquired, yes, sir.
But isn't that more pressing at this point in time before somebody else ends up with that property and wants to do something with it? I mean, there's nothing there now. 10 years from now, there could be something there, I guess, is my concern. Or somebody could apply for something and we'd be going, oh, that's a right of way. So that's the only piece of property that needs to be bought, easement, whatever, to correct Durrett Road?
Back to the current end of their ownership.
To their-
Yes, sir.
I understand
That's
that.
correct.
Yeah, I understand there's a piece in here that's owned, I mean, that they don't have any real access.
Control over, yes, sir.
No control, and then it breaks up and then it starts again.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Mhm.
Because, I mean, we had a number of letters a year, 15 months ago about when we were going to fix Durrett Road, and I keep saying it's not us that fixes Durrett Road.
Yes, sir.
I just want to
understand.
make sure we're, okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Black.
Okay, Mr. Black.
I just have, the other thing I'm concerned about is, the place for the park, it's very ambiguous right now. I'd like to see us, if we could, we're going into this, that we could find a place sooner rather than later in regards to that. I guess that's a concern I have. And then I mentioned in opening board comments too, and I'm not sure it was Newland or whoever, but I'm sure they would be agreeable to that, as far as all the piles of dirt around that area. That can't happen. When there's a new home built, the piles of dirt have to be moved away, especially if they have these aesthetic standards. Can't be left behind by construction. So I guess that's, and then the square footage, that's the big one.
Yes,
So
sir.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Thomas.
Could you email me these proffers, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've agreed basically that we don't want to make a decision tonight. We want opportunities to look at the proffers more clearly. So we could table this, is that what?
Alfred, do you defer? Then what do we need
defer?
to do?
Okay.
Table?
We need
Defer.
a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we defer this action on this request until February the 10th. Is that the next board meeting? February the 10th.
Second.
So moving and properly second that we would defer action on rezoning 03-2014 until February 10th. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Okay, that takes us to agenda item 6, proposed amendment of chapter 37, section 37-7 of the Code of Caroline County to assess a court fee to fund software, hardware, and associated equipment costs for the implementation and maintenance of electronic summons system. Is that, okay. Mr. Mosier.
Mr. Chairman, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. Mr. Chairman, those funds would be attached to the court costs and processing fee in the courts. The current fee is $51. It would move that fee to $56. Only people that would have to pay that would people that would be found guilty for a speeding infraction or something of that nature, or any other type of infraction through the courts. That $5 would be set aside and earmarked for this e-ticket system. And the e-ticket system is literally taking the driver's license from the individual back to the police car, running through a swipe device, and it would automatically generate all the information from that driver's license onto a electronic ticket. And then the officer could print it in his police car. It would save time. It would be safer. You're quicker. You're in and out. And the person would sign the ticket. It would also, the big benefit of it is it populates our current records management system, and it also populates the court system. So right now, all the tickets that we issue, somewhere around 8,000 a year, have to be manually entered into the records management system, and they're subject to mistakes or problems or improper entries. Not many, but you have a few, as well as the courts. So this way it would all be fluent.
So you
have a
could,
problem.
you could see my entire driving record in a...
No, it doesn't actually run your driving record. All it does is take the information off your driver's license and puts it on the actual ticket.
Okay.
And
Not that much paper in the police car.
right, we don't have that much paper. It's certainly something that can be funded with this $5. We're always looking for ways outside the box to find funding because we understand funding issues with the county. We certainly don't want to raise the taxes. So this fund could actually be banked for a period of time until we could afford to actually buy the system. We wouldn't have to go in debt to get the system. We could wait and earmark these funds until we had enough to actually get the equipment for the police cars. And any associated equipment that we currently purchase could be such as laptop computers that are in the police cars now. They would obviously work for the e-ticket program, so those could be funded through e-ticket and the fines instead of actually the budget. So, those are just some benefits from the program as well.
Okay. Are there other questions? I beg your pardon? We haven't opened it yet. So are there other questions prior to the opening of the public hearing? Okay. At this time, we will open the public hearing for proposed amendment of Chapter 37, Section 37.7 of the Code of Caroline County. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Seeing no one with the intent to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Board members have questions or comments?
I have one question.
Okay.
Major Mosier, so would we be able to reduce personnel by doing this when we eventually go to this system?
I mean, it's certainly something we could look at. I do not think that reducing the staff in the records department would be a viable option. We currently have 3 people in there that does the records for the department. It would allow us some time to catch up with our records department that we haven't been able to catch up with over years. Like the Library of Virginia requires us to document and destroy records on a certain time basis, and we could get to that more efficiently than we do now because of the demand for the ticket entry. I'm sure the court would certainly benefit from it as well, but we could look at that as well in the future to see what kind of man hours it saves.
Because it sounds like it'll save a good bit of data entry.
It would save a lot of data entry. How many hours a day? I don't know at this point. We'd have to look and see in the future.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Is Major Mosier going to define speeding for us? Since he's not going to look at your record, I just want to make sure I understand what speeding is.
Speeding is
It's what you do.
Is an absolute
On a regular basis?
is an absolute law. Whatever the posted speed limit sign is,
Thank you,
anything over the speed of that sign, 56 and a 55 would be speeding.
And I agree with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
And seriously, it does seem as though it would make a safer situation and probably a quicker stop, since you could get that information much quicker and the person could be on their way.
And it would be more legible as well.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't have to rely on handwritten summonses.
Okay. Having said that, how does the board wish to handle this?
Make a motion that we move forward, Mr. Chairman?
Your second?
Oh,
Your second?
fine with me.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second that we would move forward with this proposed amendment. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Okay. That takes us to unfinished business. Request for zoning text amendment for extended stay hotel.
I am not doing this. I see what's going on in Bowling Green, what's going on, and these guys aren't paying anything.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have my staff report in your packet. We discussed this issue back at the December 2nd meeting, I believe, and we were directed to meet with economic development to look at this issue, and I believe, based on my discussions with Mr. Wilson, that we are in agreement that it's probably premature to go forward with this text amendment at this time.
Okay.
I do have one question.
Mr. Thomas?
One short question. I was driving home from Richmond last night, and they're actually on the highway signs
Yes, sir.
as an extended stay hotel.
Yes, sir.
This
Yes.
particular thing was on the highway sign when you get to 104 and it says, "What's up?" And how does that happen? I know that's VDOT, but
Well, except that we can't regulate the sign content, and yes, they are misrepresenting what they can do there. But we don't think we should facilitate that type of use, which is what this ordinance amendment would have done.
but I mean, aside from this ordinance amendment, that's indicative of a deeper problem within the state. Because theoretically, anybody who went through that process, I could have Floyd's whatever on the highway sign. And I mean, it's not approved. How did they get there? And
Yeah, I will talk to Mr. Nelson about that issue to see whether there's a way that we can address that.
or at least put a line across that says future, possible, maybe.
Kind of, sort of, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay,
I will say that they have, you go by that particular motel now, there are lots of cars. I mean, they stays pretty busy now.
and
I
that's
would like
kind
to
of-
see what our transient occupancy tax rate is from last year, some quarter to the quarter of when their occupancy
From
went
that
up.
particular-
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe it
I've
is.
heard stories of what really goes on, so
Okay, based on the recommendation from staff and the questions that the board has, how does the board want to address this issue regarding the text amendment for the extended stay hotel? Motion is in order.
we don't have to take no action at that.
Okay, we can just take no action? I mean, it's a text amendment, or it's a text amendment,
It's
and
unfinished
so...
business, so we can take no action and leave it as unfinished business.
Take no action.
Yeah, we
Okay.
never actually prepared a text amendment. It was more of an issue of whether you wanted us to consider it or not, so.
Okay, so we'll take no action on it. Okay, that moves us to unfinished business, item 8, continued first reading for proposed zoning text amendment, text 03 through text 05, 2014, temporary quarters in M1 zoning district.
Jeff, take care.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we also previously discussed this issue with the board relative to a current industrial prospect that currently operates in the county. One of the issues of concern to the board was to try to tighten this up a little bit more, perhaps tie it to some level of investment. You will note that we have a proposed amended condition 3, which is hopefully in blue, that we attempted to tie it to the square footage of the facility and the type of use there. We also, if you look at what was condition 2, suggested that we strike out a couple of potential uses there to try to further tie it to the research and development and electrical manufacturing, which is what we were dealing with. With that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Again, I guess as far as I'm concerned, it seemed that the board concern major was the ability to be able to manage it. And it is still, to me, it's just very difficult to manage. The idea, I see it as being something that could be good, but we've learned that oftentimes what we intend to happen often does not happen. And then it becomes almost impossible to keep the unintended from happening. So I don't know how the board wishes to deal with this, whether you feel that the areas in blue are enough to take care of what might be issues, or whether or not it needs more work, or how does the board want to deal with it? Mr. Black?
I just have a quick question. This is by special exception only, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we would have to grant permission for this to happen.
Yes, sir.
So it's not by right.
It's not a by right use.
It's a special exception.
And if the board will remember, you did authorize staff to go ahead and advertise for public hearing at your February 10th meeting. So we could still make modifications, but you have authorized a public hearing for February 10th.
I guess I look at, like number 6, such buildings should have no more than 6 bedrooms or 1 kitchen. How are you going to manage that? I mean, you know, how are you going to say that there's only 6 bedrooms in there?
They would have to submit building construction plans, a site plan which delineates the uses in the area. They'd also have to submit their construction plans and get that inspected. Okay. Now, understanding a landowner can always make modifications after the fact that aren't necessarily permitted or inspected, and I don't know that that's the issue here. I understand the board's concern generally about enforcement, and I share those concerns.
Yeah. It's not open to the general public. How are you going to stop the general public from going there? I mean, again, I understand the intent, but I just don't see how it's going to be managed. But it's up to the board.
I guess my major, as far as enforcement is concerned, is how would you enforce number 8? I mean, you can say that one person can only stay 5 out of 7 days, and they can stay more than 100, cannot stay more than 180 days. That's where the enforcement, to me, is going to really come into play. You'll never be able to enforce, I don't believe you'll ever be able to enforce that particular provision in this, because, number 8, it's maximum lodging time at any one individual is 5 nights in a 7-day period, and not to exceed 180 days in a calendar year.
Of course, it's already been advertised for public hearing.
And we need to go to public hearing, and I understand that. But to me, a condition like that, it's a fuzzy, feel-good condition. It's not enforceable, and really it doesn't mean anything at all. And I hate to see us put conditions in something that we know we're not going to be able to enforce. To me, it just, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense to do those things. That's my personal feeling.
Understand and share that concern. We've got that same issue elsewhere.
We do.
Okay, so this will go to public hearing at our February meeting, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay, that takes us to new business item 9, proposed reallocation of Dawn voting polling location from the Dawn Progressive Center to the Dawn Library.
Saving money.
Where's Joey? I'm freezing. I'm freezing. I'm freezing.
He'll be okay.
No, I won't. No, I won't. I'm getting ready to put my hat and coat on.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the registrar and electoral board are not here, but I think the request is pretty straightforward. They've asked to move the location of the Dawn polling place from the Dawn Progressive Association, where it's currently located, to the Dawn Library. And my understanding is they've secured permission from the library to do so. In order to make that change, an amendment of the county code would be required. And so that's what, if you're in agreement with the change, we'd ask that you authorize us moving forward with a public hearing to make that ordinance amendment.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Underwood, do you?
Yeah, my only question is, I read the letter that they wrote to the ex-chairman and past chairman, past chairman. And I was just shocked at some of the issues that they say they had, and I was just surprised. I was not made aware of these concerns. So I could certainly talk to the folks in my district. So I think if they wanted some changes, I would have thought that Mr. Nunley would have made some type of communication. So I'm just really baffled, and I'm not all in favor of this change. So that's probably why he didn't come.
This is your district. Would you like time to investigate this, or how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't ask for the change, so I'm fine just like it is. So I'm going to ask the board member to support me and reject this request.
I'll second that.
Is that the form of a motion, Mr. Underwood?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
This has been moved and properly second that we reject the proposal. Mr. Underwood feels like he was not consulted and has not had an opportunity to discuss the validity of such a change. All in favor, let it... Question?
I read the letter, and how do we address to the folks that work in there the conditions that are in the letter? I guess that's my question. It's got mold, it's got heat problems, it's got...
Well, Mr. Sealy, you were there a couple of weeks ago. You look fine to me. So I've been there I don't know how many times. And
well, I haven't spent 15 hours in that building.
I haven't, well, I've spent more than 15 hours in there. And I don't know any of these concerns to be valid, as far as I'm concerned. I certainly...
I know when...
I just have a concern when someone wants to do something in the district and has not said a word and just sends a letter. If they wanted to discuss it, they should have come in before the board tonight and discussed it.
Okay.
I'm willing to listen, but I'm certainly not going to chase them down.
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Question? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I would think that they could come to the board, and if they have concerns or would like to speak with Mr. Underwood regarding that, they could make preparations to do so. And then maybe we could entertain it later. Okay, let's go on to agenda item 10, proposed issuance of request for proposal for development of wireless broadband network.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you're well aware, there are many areas in Caroline County that continue to lack access to reliable and affordable broadband internet service. This is a nationwide problem that all three levels of government have been working on for some time with limited success. However, there have been some recent technological improvements that appear to increase the opportunities for broadband service in rural localities. There are now companies known as wireless internet service providers, or WISP, if you will, that are using wireless technology to avoid the dependence on running fiber that typically prevents service in rural areas. And while these WISP will use fiber when it's available, they are now focused more on building a network that's based on wireless equipment mounted on vertical assets such as cell towers and water tanks. There have been localities in Virginia, such as Franklin, that have had some success in using this new technology and extending service to underserved areas with this approach. Late last year, there was a meeting held at George Washington Regional Commission to discuss opportunities to provide improved internet service in the region. And this meeting was coordinated by Sandy Terry, who was a program manager with the Center for Innovative Technology, and was also the director of IT with Franklin County when they completed their successful project that I mentioned earlier. And during this meeting, there were two wireless providers that specialize in extending service to rural areas, and one of these has expressed an interest in expanding service into Caroline County. And one of the concepts that they talked about was a public-private partnership. Excuse me, I'm getting a little nervous for some reason. Maybe that's it.
You're cold, I understand.
Shaky. So public-private partnership is based on basically the county taking two actions, one of which is you agree to accept service at your government facilities through this provider, and you sign a long-term contract to do so at an equal or better price and service level. And what that does is provide a significant anchor customer, and it gives the company revenue that enables them to justify the infrastructure to expand the network. Second, the county uses its influence to help secure access to vertical assets such as the water tanks and cell towers that I talked about earlier. So where we're going with this is staff believes there's enough potential in this concept to warrant issuing an RFP for broadband service to see what's out there, basically, and would ask the board that you authorize us to do so. Another factor that the board needs to consider is whether you're going to invest money in the design of the core network. This, based on our conversation with one of the providers, would increase your chances for getting a better product. You can certainly issue it without the money, putting the money investment, but you may get a better product if you do so.
Could I ask you, what kind of funds are we talking about?
Up to $50,000. So what we're asking is that we move forward with an RFP, see what's out there, with or without the county investment. Certainly there'll be challenges in trying to deliver this. For example, we don't own any cell towers. Where properties exist, they're exclusively for public safety reasons only. We've looked at using the public safety radio system, but 4 of those 6 towers may be available. The 2 in Hanover County would not. But right now, Motorola is giving a very small amount of bandwidth available with that. So that's something we would have to overcome. But we do believe, based on the information that we've received, that it would certainly be a good idea to move forward with an RFP, see what's out there. We think the potential exists to actually tackle this problem. So that's what we're requesting tonight.
Okay. What's the board's feeling as far as, I would say, the investment of the funds? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure broadband is coming. We know the importance of that, but I guess, do we feel that the investment of the funds, are we at that place now where we need to do that? Or what's the board's concern?
Mr. Chairman, the real issue is the broadband is not coming. We only have 2 providers. I was trying to get pizza yesterday at Roma's, and I spent 20 minutes discussing broadband with another customer. We're not going to get an expansion from Comcast. We're not going to get a big expansion from MetroCast. There's a couple of firms out there that can do something like this. I talked to a few last year, and I know it's very expensive. $50,000 is just an investment. That's not a lot of money. That's just the $50,000 to start talking about putting something together. It's going to be a lot more, but I think what you're saying is when we develop a public-private partnership, that would allow the selected vendor to use some county services, and the county in combination with citizens could make it economically viable. So the $50,000 is not a big amount of money when you're talking about what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, so just to clarify, what they would do is build the original core network by providing service to all county facilities, including fire departments and rescue squads, for example. And that would lock, they would want to lock in us as a customer for a period of time, fairly substantial period of time. That gives them that anchor customer base. They know they're going to get revenue, should provide better service for us. And then they build off of that. And in combination with that, they would, for example, put equipment on our water towers, hopefully be able to secure some access to some cell towers as well. All that would have to be identified in the RFP, but we've had a discussion with one of these companies, and there appears to be some potential to be able to begin to develop a network. And then as the money comes in, they expand it incrementally.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Seeley.
My concern is we currently have great service where the county offices are. And you turn the service over to somebody and your service goes downhill. Everybody's impacted. We've got fiber running in a lot of places where we've run cell towers too that need service or could provide service. And I guess my concern is with air cards coming down in cost and with the cell tower configurations we now have, are we really going to gain any viability? Because if they're going to start where we have infrastructure already, I don't know how that helps us long term. So I'm not opposed to an RFP, but giving them our county service, which we already have, was already paid for, it's in place, there's nothing new, doesn't sound like a good idea to me up front when we have other places that don't have it. And we have fiber in places and we're not serving them. So, and the 50,000, I'm not so sure we're in a position to give 50,000 right now. That's my other concern.
Can I tackle a couple of those questions on? We really don't have great service at the county building. We just upgraded since I've been here from a bonded T1 to 10/10 fiber, which I have 125 download speed and 11 out at my house on Comcast. So the county doesn't have anywhere near what I have at home. And we're running a lot of computers. From the county building, we have a fiber that we own that connects to the courthouse and over to Planet. But to down here, I'm paying another T1 line. To utilities, I'm paying a bonded T1 line. So we have some semblance of, but a lot of it's still based off of T1 lines, which are very expensive. So what we're looking at doing and it's just a look. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But to look at seeing if we can provide, there's all sorts of fiber in the road at our building. One of these vendors actually is in Reston at the main hub at Verizon's big fiber place. They have their equipment there. So maybe we can get a better fiber place, get a higher fiber pipe into the county building, which then get a wireless down here to the water tank
Over here.
that way, and get rid of the T1 stuff that's coming down here from our building, improve this link, and then get to the landfill where we have some infrastructure, get fire departments, start branching out on either fiber that the company has or wireless. So it would have to be a better situation for equal or less money than we're already spending. We looked that number up, and it's pretty substantial. I don't remember if you brought that with you or not, but when you add up all the little pieces of the internet that we purchase based on Comcast, MetroCast, our 10/10 Windstream, our T1 lines, it's right much per month we figured out we're spending. So we have a base number. So I think if we can look at it, even if we don't put a dollar in,
But this,
we probably going to have to
I'm
go
not
back.
opposed. I just want to know what our situation is because we sit in the center of the universe for all kinds of fiber in town. There's tons
Oh,
of
yeah.
but we can't, A, we can't tap into that fiber for free, and B, the last mile or fiber to the home is really the expensive feature.
Which
Right.
being done.
So we can't afford that. That's why when I say $50,000 is a drop in the bucket, that's what it would be if we tried to tap into fiber. The only drawback is this technology is not going to be super fast as if you're sitting on a T1 line. because it's a wireless technology.
Oh, yeah,
but
you're
they've
not going to
improved it.
game on it or anything, because there's
No,
a lag.
Yeah,
No.
but the reality
They've
is,
improved some of that.
it's,
Have they?
yeah, but it's, I mean, it's not really that